All right, good evening, everyone. I hope that everyone is well. I just want to come on here briefly. You see the title of my video is My Memories of Ananda. Obviously, I'm talking about Ananda Lewis, who recently passed. Transition, okay. Um, I just want to talk briefly about my just my time with her. Um, in college. I wasn't we weren't like best friends or anything like that. I don't think I met Ananda until it was either my junior year or my senior year. Met her formally. Okay. And let me just show. I can't find my yearbook. I think I might have I don't think I kept my yearbooks behind, but I can't find them. Okay, for people who want to claim that she lied and all of that type of thing. So I was able to go to the Howard website and download the yearbook. So here's the cover of the yearbook of my senior year. I remember him, but I don't know his name. I believe that was my friend Stacy. I believe that, yeah, that was Stacy, guy that I have mentioned him before in some videos. And I could have sworn that one of these girls here, uh-oh, one of these girls here on the front was Ananda, but I don't remember, but I think so. But anyway, this is my senior year, my yearbook from my senior year. Let me show you my picture real quick. For the folks that claim I'm lying and all of this type of thing. So you can't really see my name is down there, Nikki Kenyatta Lewis. I'll blow it up there. Nikki Kenyatta Lewis. Our majors for the seniors were under our name. So my major there was film production. And I'll show you my picture. Boom. There I am. Wearing the same hairstyle. Short. Okay. All right. So this is my senior year. As you saw, the cover said 1994. All right. So, um, she was a year behind me. Let me find her picture once again for the folks that say she lied. She lied. Oh, there's my friend Terry. But anyway, that's still in the seniors. So let me go down here to the juniors. H. There's her name right there. I'll show you guys. Blown up. Okay. You see her name. Ananda Lewis. Boom. There she is. I can't remember, um, once again, Bison 1994. Now going to Howard, okay, going there. I went there after my first year of college. So I went there my second year of college. My first year, I went to community college, and I went to community college because I got accepted into Grambling my senior year in high school. I didn't know anything about HBCUs until I was a senior in high school, and a friend of mine, Eleanor, she knew all about the HBCUs. I didn't know anything about the Greek organizations. Any white, black. I know nothing about that. She hit me to all of that our senior year. So she was like, senior year Catholic school, nuns are like, time for you all to decide where you're going to go to college. I went to all girl Catholic school, Villa Angela Academy, which now is it 2 years after I graduated, it combined with our brother school, which was St. Joseph Academy. So now it's Villa Angela St. Joseph. My daughter went there. But anyway, um, so she would have been like a legacy, So I got some money toward her tuition for that. But anyway, so my friend Eleanor hit me to these. She was like, "Girl, you got it." I wanted to go to Kent State here in Ohio, only because they had the history of the rebellion, I believe, like in the 60s. And that was my only reason for wanting to go there. And she was like, girl, you got to go to a black school. I was like, what's a black school? What is that? But anyway, she hit me to it. So nuns, like I said, the nuns in the Catholic school telling the girls, you all got to get ready for, college. What are you going to do? Decide what you're going to do with your life, where you're going to go, blah, blah, blah. So I had a book of colleges, and universities. A little, well, kind of a thick book. They used to sell those. I don't know if they sell those anymore. For you to, get information about the schools and all of that type of thing. And I had one. And again, my friend Eleanor was, girl, you got to go to a black school. Her mother was a part of AKA sorority. So she was really into the whole black college experience. That I didn't know anything about that. So she hit me to it. So I showed her my book and she said, no, girl. So when we went to this mall, the mall's called Severance. It's an outside mall now, but back then it was an inside mall. And there was a bookstore. You can't hardly find too many bookstores now because they sell books online. But we went to the bookstore. We went over to the college section, and there were books for HBCUs. And she was like, girl, look at this book. This got all the black schools. And I'm so glad she hit me to all of that because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't get in any of that kind of cultural teaching in my home. Okay, I got church, go to church. But anyway, and loves the Lord. Okay, but anyway, so I was looking through that book and I came across, of course, Spellman. Never heard of it. I came across Fisk. Was it Fisk? I believe so. Grambling, Howard. Okay, my choice when I read about Howard, I was like, oh, I have got to go to Howard. I gotta go there because it was the number one this and the number one that. One of the top schools, not just HBCUs, but one of the top schools in the nation, and blah 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 blah. But my junior year, I transferred to this all-girl Catholic school, and I didn't do well. My grades were not that good in the sciences. I had never had chemistry. Okay, so I went there my junior year. Most of the Catholic schools at that time were not accepting people their junior year. It's like, by then they felt like it was too late for you to fall into the program. But Villa Angela, they did accept me. I got accepted, but they were like, her grades are too not, good enough for the sciences, so she has to be willing to take business courses. And that's what I did my last 2 years of high school. And honestly, I feel like, I think I was a year ahead of myself. I was a year ahead. I graduated from high school when I was 17. I was supposed to graduate in 1990, but I graduated in 1989. The lady who raised me sent me and my sibling to the Montessori, which kind of advanced me kind of early on. I don't know, I think I was like 3 years old when I went to the Montessori or some shit like that. And so I remember my sibling, he was going to public school, very young. Then she was sending him to private school. He had to test. So I was sitting there. This is what she told me. They said I was sitting there. She said that they were like, well, she's just sitting here. Why don't we let her take the test? And I tested beyond kindergarten and tested into the first grade. So they told her and they said, well, why don't you just let her start school now? Okay. So I did. But I do feel that now that when I got older and I went to graduate school and I was learning about the different types of learning, because that's where I learned that people learn differently, but they only teach one way in the school system. Not only that, then my daughter, she started playing piano when she was 5. And her piano teacher wanted the parents to sit in on the lesson. So her very first lesson, I think I've talked about this, I probably have, but okay, repeat. Her very first lesson, her piano teacher was asking her some things and my daughter didn't know, and I was like, oh no, why doesn't she know? And her piano teacher was explaining to me, because she took childhood development, she said she's not supposed to know at that age. And I'm thinking, well, why? I asked, why did you ask her? She said, because some children, they do know at that age. She said, but most of them don't, because they're not supposed to, according to childhood development, which was something that I kind of mentioned earlier in my life, that I did earlier about human development and the brain, and at what point, based on physical human development, is a human being, okay, a child able to perform certain things, okay, which is kind of logical. You don't expect an infant to come out of the womb walking, okay? Not human infants, okay, although I've read otherwise, but that's a whole nother topic. All right, so anyway, and I think they say what, that the human brain doesn't fully develop until the person is in their 20s or something like that. And then it's just it from what I remember, it's not so much a developing, hit a peak, and then down. It's like hit a peak and boom, starts to immediately go downward. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So I after my studies, getting older, hearing these things, and hearing that, I realized, I said, okay, I think that the reason I was struggling with some of those sciences and whatnot is because I was a year ahead. I was thrown a year ahead, and I wasn't ready for some of the concepts, because it's interesting. Some of the concepts, like with math, I didn't do well in math, but like I majored in film production, and my minor was theater arts. So of course I didn't have a lot of math. There I had, was it two math? No, I had only to do one math in college, and I withdrew from that class 2 times. My third time, I took it my senior year, second semester. Shit, I had better had passed it, okay, because I wanted to graduate. I needed to graduate, okay, and the way the teacher taught it differently, and I was ready to handle the concept. I was tutoring people in the class, whereas before, like in high school, I was getting F's. It happened my first year of college, which was community college, and my senior year of college at Howard. I ended up tutoring people. It was like I was one of those people that I needed to see every single step in the equation, where some people were able to skip steps and still, figure out the equation. I wasn't able to do that until it became down pat, and then I was able to, to skip that. Because sometimes I had some teachers. I had one teacher at Howard teaching the math class. He was a football player. That's all he talked about was football. He do a problem or two at the beginning of the class, and the rest of the class he talked about football. I'm like, no, motherfucker. I need to know how to do this shit. But anyway. So nevertheless, I never, I wasn't held back at all. The old lady raised me said she tried to get the school to hold me back in the 4th grade, but they refused, because if I remember correctly, she said they felt like I knew enough to be able to go for it, and I did. So I graduated a year early from high school. I did my first year. Again, I did get accepted to Grambling. I got accepted to Grambling. It was like about 4 or 5 of us talking about going to Grambling. Me, Eleanor, Shelley, I believe Lanice, and there was one other person. I can't remember who it was, but in the end, I got accepted. Eleanor got accepted, and I don't even know if the other 3 applied. Okay, I don't remember. I'm not saying they didn't. I don't remember. I know I didn't go, and I was going to go, but I had this little job. I worked in a daycare center. See, I told her I've been working with children all my fucking life. I was 16 years old, working in a daycare center after school. There was one of the teachers there, and I told her I was going to Grambling, and she said, "Girl, don't go there." And I was like, "Why not?" And she said, "You're not gonna like it there." She said it's far, it's in the country. She had all of these reasons for me not to go to Grambling. So I'm 16 years old, kind of shaking a little bit. I tell the lady who raised me, and she said, "Well, Nikki, I was gonna tell you wasn't going there no way." And I was like, "What?" She said, she said, "I didn't want you to go there." And I said, "Why?" She said, "It's too far. It was Louisiana. Here I am in Cleveland, Ohio." So she felt it was too far. And she said, "You say you want to go to Howard. Now," she said, "Have you applied? Are you going to apply there?" I didn't. I was like, "No." "Oh, I applied to Hampton as well." But anyway, not my senior year. I said, "No, I didn't apply." I said, because what I read about it and the academics, and I don't think my grades are good enough. Even though my last 2 years of high school, I was doing business. I mean, it was easy. It's ABC 1, 2, 3, filing, typing. Lady raised me had already taught me how to type the year before I went there. I had English. I did very well in English. My senior year, I took British literature, which was the honors English class. I did well in that. History, and just the basic stuff. Just I didn't do the maths and sciences there. And I said, no, because Howard, you got to have these great grades and I'm not going to get accepted and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, why don't you go to Tri-C, which is Cuyahoga Community College here. Cuyahoga is the county. Your first year, get your grades up and then apply. And I mean, it was almost like fighting words. We used to look down at Tri-C like it was 13th grade. Talked about it so bad. But she probably prayed hard or some shit like that. Well, because when she told me I wasn't gonna be able to go there, no way. So, and I lived in a time where like you gonna do what your parents tell you to do. it's not about you gonna do what you want to do. You gonna do what you told to do. Okay, so. And then one of my friends from high school, she didn't go to school her first year either. She worked. And so me and her kind of hung out a little bit. She was in church, I was in church. So we kind of hung out together a little bit that year. She was working. I went to Tri-C my first year. Got my grades up and I applied. I applied to Howard and I applied to Hampton. And I visited, crazy thing, I visited Hampton. I visited the school and Hampton University. Yes, I visited school, and I didn't dislike it. You know what I'm saying? But my heart was set on Howard, and you should have seen. I got accepted. It was so beautiful. But I didn't visit Howard. I had never been to D.C. Okay, didn't visit there. The acceptance letter that Hampton sent, it was just like fucking it was so nice. They actually made it like a diploma, like the hardboard diploma, when they put the diploma in that thing or whatever. They sent that to say you've been accepted. It was so fucking nice. And I looked at that, and I just, that alone made me question, like, maybe I should go to Hampton. But I really, really wanted to go to Howard. Howard just sent you a letter, here, you've been accepted. But anyway, I was so excited to go my senior year, and my mom, the lady who raised me, and my grandmother, they drove me there. And she had a minivan. So, and I had never been to DC before. Now, DC, since the last time I was there, they gentrified the hell out of it, okay? But it wasn't like that before. So, like Georgia Avenue, Howard University sits on Georgia Avenue. So we're driving in, we're on Georgia Avenue in Maryland. Georgia Avenue, oh, it's nice. We had never been there. She had never been there. It's nice, it's pretty, it's nice. Keep driving. I mean, and then when we got into DC, it just was like the big ghetto. And everybody kind of got quiet, everybody got quiet. And I do kind of remember thinking, oh my God, I hope she don't turn around. I hope she don't tell me I can't go. It was hard as hell to find the dorm. I did not live on campus. No, I did live on campus. What I mean is I didn't live in the freshman dorm because I wasn't a freshman. I was going in as a sophomore. All my credits were accepted. All my credits were transferred. Which was really good because there was a lot of students who were having, transfer students who were having some issues. And back then, I don't know, maybe it's better, but it was so unorganized back in the day. I never had a problem with my classes. I never had a problem with them accepting my credits from the Tri-C. I didn't have a problem with housing. I didn't have any of those issues, but there were students enough who did have. I didn't have issues with my financial aid. I didn't have none of them kind of problems, thank God. But so I stayed in a dorm that was off campus, but it was still a dorm, which they were like old apartments. I guess maybe the school bought and turned into dormitories. So I stayed in Eaton Plaza, the alleyway. Eaton was on one street, then there was an alley, and then there was Sutton, which was co-ed. Eaton was all girls. Okay, Sutton was co-ed, which ended up on the other street. So trying to maneuver DC. The lady who raised me, my grandmother, they didn't know nothing about. They had never been in them kind of streets before. All it is a whole bunch of circles in DC. This circle, that circle, And I think somebody told me they rode around coming from wherever they're coming from. Their family drove around one of them circles for about 10 minutes trying to figure that shit out, But anyway, so I stayed in Eaton my first year. And then I stayed there my first 2 years. Then my junior year, I stayed in Sutton, which was so fun. And my senior year, I had my own place. But nevertheless, back to um, Ananda. When I saw her, I can't. I mean, it was just so going to Howard was just like fucking phenomenal. Okay, I mean, it was black people there from all over the all corners of the fucking earth. From in DC alone, they used to call it Chocolate City. Hell, I don't know what they call it now. Okay, um, but anyway, there was just so many beautiful people on that fucking campus. Just a whole nother world, a whole nother realm. And I loved every minute of it. I was so glad that I went. As a matter of fact, one time, they threatened to take me out of the school. The lady who raised me, my dad, and I was like, I clowned. Like, no, in other words, no, the fuck you're not. I mean, wish they if they wanted to do what they did, but I guess I clowned enough. They were like, just let the bitch go, goddamn, But anyway, so she was a year behind me, so I don't remember. I can't say I saw her this particular day at this particular time. But I was trying to say, going there, it was a lot of uh, celebrities' children that went there. Howard had been known, I don't know about now, but Howard had been known at that point for their homecoming. So it would be a lot of celebrities there for homecoming. Hell, just a random fucking day, there would be some celebrity on campus. Okay. Um, there was one, I'll give you an example. There was one day, it was a class that was later in the day, maybe like 4 o'clock or something like that. That's kind of a late class for a campus. Usually everybody's hustling, bustling in the morning, early afternoon. So or it might have been 5 even, okay, or 6, but the campus was, the yard was empty and my class was in the main building. I was late for class and I don't remember. I just remember myself running to class. I got off the shuttle bus, ran up that damn steep ass hill, and was just running my ass to class. The yard was basically empty, running my ass to class, trying to get there, walking fast. I saw a couple pass me, a man and a woman. The woman had on a long fur, beautiful fur, and the man had on a suit, and a nice, looked like maybe a wool coat or something like that, okay? And did he have on a coat? Yeah, but it was nice. And I saw them and I looked, but I was so focused on getting to class. I don't know if I had a test or if it was a day that, we were doing review for the test. You want to take all them notes for them test reviews and whatnot. And I think this was my junior year. It was one of them years where, bitch, I can't play around. I can't fail because it's going to be time to graduate in a hot second. Was it? Yeah, because I believe I was coming from the dorm. I can't remember if it was my junior year or my senior year. Anyway, I passed right by them. I saw them, but I didn't concentrate on their face. I looked and I kept going. Because kind of to see that kind of thing on that campus was not a big deal. You would see that kind of, people of kind of importance are dressed a certain way, especially back then. The whole thing with the comfort, dressing comfortably now and kind of, well, what did one man say? One of the shows I watched, what was it? Project Runway, where he called it the slobification of America. There's a book called The Slobification of America, but just, you didn't really see that all the time. Okay, people dressed. And I didn't pay him any attention. I'm trying to get to class. I got to take this test or whatever it was. My focus was, and I'm running late. I get to the steps of the main building where my class was. This girl was like, "Oh my God, did you see? Did you see?" And I'm like, "What?" And I didn't know this girl. She said, "Girl, did you see Denzel Washington and his wife?" I was like, so I stopped. I was, where? Eyes got all big. I'm looking crazy. Turning my, where? And she said, "Girl, you passed right by him." And I said, "Them to the lady with the fur." She said, "Yeah." And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I didn't even see them like that. I was like, I'm so busy trying to get to class because I'm running late. And I wanted to go back and try and say hi and shit like that. Was like, and I was like, I gotta go to class. So it was just one of many, um, or homecoming. I've posted some people in my on my community tab that I saw there. Queen Latifah, Bismarcky. He used to do our parties, do a lot of the parties that we had at. I cannot remember the name of that club, but shit, we used to have a ball up in that motherfucker. I met Beverly Johnson. She was one. I met her at the very first football game I went to. I got her autograph too. I always thought that she was just so fucking beautiful. So for me to see her in real time, it was just like wow. Um, who else did I see there? I talked about it. Ossie Davis. Okay, and then there were students who were children of select. I had a class, a theater class, theater one, my freshman year, which was my first year with Marlon Wayans. I didn't know who he was until much later, because he was a freshman too. Um, but anyway, or people who became celebrities. Like I remember the first time I had a class with Taraji P Henson. We took what was that class? Costume design together with Professor Katz. And we used to sit next to each other. And I remember our first class, we were both talking about how nervous we were because we didn't know how to draw because that was going to be the final assignment we had. It was costume design, so we had to draw. And some days, you know, she would save me a seat for class, or I would save for a seat for class whoever got there first. Or if we weren't there, girl, you didn't come to the last class, this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I remember when I saw Baby, and Taraji P. Henson was a year behind me as well. So I remember when I saw Baby Boy years later. And I'm looking at the movie and I'm like, damn, she looked all too familiar. Like, who is that? And I kept looking like she looked so familiar. She looked so familiar. Finally, talking to a friend of mine from Howard back then, she was just telling me that she went to Howard, and I was like, that name is familiar too. And it hit me. I was like, oh, that's the girl I had in class because I remember when we introduced ourselves to each other, and I asked her name. She said Taraji, and um, another person, Most Def. And my friend was telling me, she said, girl, he used to come to the parties all the time. He wasn't a student. She said he used to come to the parties all the time. I was like, I knew he looked familiar. Um, and like what I said, Bismarck Pete, man, would DJ the when he would DJ the parties, them shits would be so fucking fun. Oh my God. I wore my hair real short as you saw in the picture, and I remember I'm walking up the steps one day at the party. It was right by the DJ booth, and he put his hand on my head and slicked my hair back like that, okay, and said something like Baldy or something like that. I was like, yeah. But anyway, so back to meeting Ananda. I just remember when I saw her on campus, I was like, wow, she is beautiful. And she had the kind of beauty to me. I really don't feel like when I would see pictures of her or see her on camera, I was like, man, she's beautiful. But it just really didn't I always say didn't do her any justice, because if you could see her in real time, it was just like, her beauty was just exuded just so much more beyond that camera. Like sometimes the camera can make a person look prettier or better or whatever you want to say, more attractive, and sometimes the camera just it doesn't pick it up. She had that kind of light and that kind of beauty that I felt like it didn't pick all of her beauty up. I just remember seeing her like, wow, but you would see people like that there. You know what I'm saying? Where you'd be like, wow, what kind of beauty is that? And I remember I used to see her at the shuttle bus. We waited on the shuttle bus to come get us, to take us to the dorm or whatever. And there was this guy, and he would see her, and he would always dote on her and tell her, you're just so gorgeous. And she would just laugh, you know what I'm saying, and smile. But she had that kind of beauty that could be very intimidating to a person. And sometimes people think that when a person is very attractive, like that, that they automatically they're stuck up. They think they know them, you know. I've had those thoughts as well, you know. You think that they're stuck up, or you think that they're better than, and all of this. One thing about her is, I remember she always dressed like real. Maybe a person might say, I don't know, would it be bohemian or whatever? She just throw on some t-shirts and jeans all the time. You know, she would have holes in her jeans and stuff. And back then, they wasn't selling jeans with holes in them in stores. You know, they didn't sell that stuff back then. That's stuff that we did on our own. You know. And then sometimes back then, you know, people look at you like they got them holes in them jeans. You know, now it's a style and they selling them for 70, 80 damn dollars in the store. But anyway, I had a pair of jeans one time I got from the thrift store. I put the holes in them, bleached them the fuck out, threw paint on them, and shit. You know, I used to like that kind of thing, you know. But anyway, so she had this beauty that was just like, you know, astounding. Like like I said, could be very intimidating, you know. So I remember I believe it was a history class with her. It was in the humanities building, which was on the main campus. And I remember seeing her walk into class like the first day. I'm like, oh, there's that girl. You know, she's so pretty. This, that, and other. And she always came into class, you know, just herself. Like I said, she had on her t-shirts, just and jeans. Like you see her in the, you know, the what do you call it? The photo shoots and everything with her celebrity, you know, with the stylish things on. Not that she wasn't stylish. I'm just saying, you know, that was not her everyday way of dressing. You know, she was just so fucking laid back and kicked back and so down to earth. It was like, wow. And so I saw her come in. So we had to do presentations for that class. And I remember I did my presentation, and she came to me. She told me she thought she liked my presentation, you know, which I was kind of surprised because, again, I didn't know her. I had never talked to her. She, again, the beauty, her beauty was so, you know, that kind that people think, you know, that can be intimidating, or that you feel like that person is wearing it on their sleeves and they think they're better than, and blah, 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 you know, and they'd never speak to me and all of that type of thing, you know. So I was a little taken aback, you know, like, oh, thank you. But like I said, I didn't know her. My senior year on the shuttle bus. Now, I didn't live in the dorms my senior year. My senior year, I lived in an apartment. Me and my friends had got an apartment building. But I would take the shuttle now that shuttle was a different shuttle bus, because you had Eaton and Sutton. There was one shuttle bus that took you to Eaton and Sutton, and then there were two other dorms off campus, or three other dorms off campus. Oh, I can't remember the name of those dorms because I didn't go there regularly. But there was a building. Was that the one I went to? Yeah, there was a building over that way called the Mondrian. Or some people say the Mondrian, okay, where sometimes students would say it wasn't, it was just a regular apartment building. It wasn't affiliated with Howard. But it, you know, back then DC was very, very expensive to live there. So I know it's hell of expensive now. So that was a kind of a dorm. I mean, not a dorm, apartment building where I felt like, oh, people's parents with money, you know, let the, you know, pay for the kids to stay up in there. You know what I'm saying? That was another one. What was her name? OJ Simpson's daughter was there at the time. I think she was like a year or two ahead of me. I didn't know her personally. I mean, the Barakas went there. If you are familiar with Amiri Baraka, some people say Amiri Baraka. His sons went there. I knew his namesake. Okay, we called him Mitty. Okay, his brother is now, I believe, the mayor in one of the cities in New Jersey. Is it Newark? I think Newark. Okay, and I think Mitty held some kind of political office too. I think I saw that recently. But anyway. Well, I mean, I got so many stories. I was just thinking about about some with with his younger brother's girlfriend. So many stories on campus. But anyway, let me just hone in to this. And I just remember being on the shuttle. But where I lived, I could walk from the apartment building to campus. But when I tell you, the blocks in DC was long as fuck. You understand what I'm saying? I could say it was 4 blocks The campus was 4 blocks from the dorm. We're talking long ass blocks, okay? So it would be a walk. It was a nice little walk. So sometimes I would opt to get on the shuttle bus because the dorm that it stopped at was not far from campus. I'm remembering the building, but I'm trying to think. Because what was it? Did we live on 14th and Fairmont or U Street? Something like that. I think 14th and Fairmont. But anyway, so I saw on the shuttle. I heard her. It was packed. She was standing up. She was talking to somebody about needing a place to stay. The building I was living in had vacancies, and if you got somebody in there, you would get free rent. So I got off the shuttle bus and I, introduced myself to her and I said my building has vacancies, And she was like, okay, hey, can I, go there with you because the office was open. I was like, sure. Her and her friend got a place, and boom, And from there, we would. I talked to her periodically. We would hang out periodically. Sometimes me and one of my roommates, or both my roommates, sometimes would go to her room and hang out, smoke a little weed. Okay, we had an acting class together. Acting one, was that acting one? Yeah, because that was my minor. Theater arts was my minor. And I remember her telling me that her major was history. And she was in acting. She was in the acting class, but you could take that acting class too as an elective. For me, it was I had to take it because my minor was theater arts. And I remember one time I was going into class, and she called out to me. She was like, "Hey, Nikki," she's like, "I got some weed." Me and my friend got some weed, and I was like, "Okay." So we went behind the School of Fine Arts because our acting class was in fine arts, smoked a little weed. I don't even know what we talked about, just stuff, you know what I'm saying? Went into class late as hell, okay? But that's when, of course, all the creativity came flooding out, you know what I'm saying? I remember, what did we have to do that day? We got in the groups and we had to create a scene about oh shit, what was it, about coming, trying to get out of something, out of a situation. Well, my mind has always been a little different, okay? And mind you, I had some weed in my system. I came, and I'm surprised to this day that my group let me do this, that we did this. But we created this scene, and my thing was, I was saying that we were coming out of the land of being coming out of the land of not, was it coming? It was one or the other, either coming out of the land of non-being to coming into the land of being, or either or the other way around, either coming out of the land of being into the land of non-being. I can't remember which way it was. And we created this whole thing that we went across the whole stage with all these scenarios. And I stood there and I was patting my foot. I said, "We're coming out of the land of being into the land of non-being." Okay, that was that day. That means that she called me behind her building to smoke some weed, and my teacher was like, "Wow," you know what I'm saying? Like, where did y'all get that from? And everybody in my group pointed at me, and I was like, I came up with that, But he said, his thing was, I really didn't mean anything like that. He said, I meant something more like physical, like jail or prison, And but at the same time, it was correct. You all did it right. You know what I'm saying? And we got the passing grade for it, But one thing about her I have found is, when I got to know her a little bit, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, she is the coolest person ever. She was so down to earth. There wasn't a stuck up bone in her body. Like I said, sometimes when a person has that kind of beauty, that kind of physical beauty, people automatically assume that, wasn't she didn't wear her beauty on her sleeve. Like I haven't watched the videos I've seen on YouTube. That I've seen video about her last video and her and this, that, and other things. I haven't watched those. It was only one thing I watched. I think and I only watched a part of it, where she was at a table, what CNN, I guess she's an anchor, Sarah, which I believe Sarah, I can't remember her last name, but if I remember, and another lady who had breast cancer, if I remember correctly, like I said, when she moved into that apartment, a friend of hers moved with her. I believe it was her. I believe, I can't remember the name. Sarah rings a bell, and I kept looking at her picture like, is that her? But I just can't recall. And I'm thinking, well, they said that they were best friends from their freshman year at Howard. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was her. But and the girl asked her, I mean, the woman asked her, Sarah said, about her having did you have your mammogram? And she looked at her, she said, I didn't. She had on a t-shirt and her kind of a blue jean, a denim style button up. And I said, that was her. That was her. So down to earth, so real, just a beautiful person. And she had this kind of a inner glow about her as well. I remember years later, I really didn't keep up with too many people that I went to college with. There was a friend of mine, Denise. We talked lots, and Denise graduated a year before I did, because we were in New York together, and we talked for years. And I haven't talked to her in years. It's been a long time. I really think that I can't. Is that the only one other person I kind of kept up with? Here and there. You know what I'm saying? So I really didn't know that she was on television. I didn't know that she was on. What was it first? BET Teen Summit. I didn't watch Teen. I hadn't. I to this day I've never watched an episode of Teen Summit. From BET. We ain't had cable and all that kind of stuff. It's just something I never watched. I never saw. But I had heard. How did I find out that she was? I don't know if I found out that she was doing TV maybe when she was on MTV, or if she was still doing BET Teen Summit. I can't remember. And I remember hearing, just like they said in that CNN clip, I think that's what it was, how she saw the ad in the paper in DC, and she went for it. But when I did find out, I was like, well, I'm not surprised at all. She looks like she always had that energy and looked like that's, even though her major was history, because I asked her I asked her what she wanted to do, because I was surprised that her major was history, and she told me teach. Yes, she wanted to teach history, be a professor. But when I saw her, and then I was reading here something about her parents wanted her, that she really wanted to work with young people, children, I believe teens, and help them, but her family wanted her to make some money, because there wasn't money in that. So I saw something about law school and that she majored in history. I said, oh, I see, But there wasn't anything about her wanting to be in the entertainment industry that I saw. I know they said she signed herself up for the pageant that she was in as a youngster. And, but when I heard, I was like, well, that's no surprise at all, to know that she would be in front of the camera. I mean, she had the personality, she had the energy, she had the beauty, she had all of that. She had this inner glow. She was very friendly, very personable, very approachable, and just an all-around nice person. It's nice the way sometimes I don't like to use the word nice, because it really means stupid. There was nothing stupid about this girl in any way, shape, or form. She was just an all-around, just an awesome human being. And but I finally, so I didn't see her on Teen Summit. I didn't see, because I didn't have MTV either. I didn't see her on there. I saw her when she was doing her talk show. I would watch her talk show, and I was like, wow, look at that. That's Ananda. That's the Ananda I remember. So I remember not long ago hearing about the health issues that she was having, and the day before I saw that she had passed away, I had thought about She crossed my mind, you know, and it was how many years later, you know, she crossed my mind, and I said to myself, I wonder how she's doing, you know, with her health issues. And I just don't be looking people's stuff up online and all of that kind of thing, you know. And then I saw that, you know, so definitely my condolences, you know, to her family and everything. I had always wondered with her last name being Lewis. I don't think I ever said anything to her about it. My last name is Lewis. If we may have possibly could have had some familial ties because I have family, um, and there's a connection with my father's side of the family. I'm not talking about my uncle who lives there now, for any of his my dad's family members who may be watching this. I'm not talking about him. There is some kind of familial connection with Los Angeles, okay, on my father's side. I don't know it in depth. I've never really asked. Okay, but anyway, and then you know I saw she was an Aries, a fellow Aries, March 21st. So, you know that was nice or whatever. But I don't know. I just wanted to pay some homage. I am a medium, so I have spoken to her. Okay, I do not do celebrity readings. Somebody suggested that I do celebrity readings one time, and she does celebrity readings. But I was like, nah, you know what I'm saying? I always kind of shied away from that. um, I don't know. I just never really been after my teen years, maybe my early 20s. I just never really was a celebrity head. You know, I knew back then who the celebrities were during my time period when I was younger, but if it wasn't for my daughter, you know, who's 19, I wouldn't know who's who and what's what as far as celebrities are concerned. The rappers, the singers, I don't know. You know, I know people from when I was, you know, a younger person, but so I be seeing the posts about this, what's going on, and then these rappers, I'll be like, who is that? What happened? And it's just like, I don't care what what happened. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't even know if all of that's real or if it's just entertainment. You know. As far as she's concerned, I don't really view her. I mean, she was a celebrity, you know, but she was also someone that I knew, even briefly. You know, she was someone that I actually spent time with. Not a whole lot of time, like we was the best of friends or anything like that. No, you know, but that I hung out with enough to, you know, talk to and smoke some weed with here and there, you know, and that type of college thing, you know. But I am a medium, so I have spoken to her. Okay, and she came right away. I'm here. I will say this, you know, there is not one person that I have called out to that has not come. And I say that because there was one time when and I still offer it as a service. Someone came, you know, asked me to call out to, I believe it was her grandfather. This was a few years back. And she said, well, I don't know. I'm just not sure that, what if he doesn't come? And I said, he will. You know, I've never had one person not come. Okay. Nobody who thinks they're going to trip me up with their foolishness need to come over with your tricks and your schemes to my psychic app, because I offer it on there as well, or in my inbox, trying to get me to call out to somebody that doesn't fucking exist, so you can keep that bullshit and test your fucking self. Okay, but anyway, yes, I have spoken to her. Now, I will say this, I'm also not a person to feel like every single time a celebrity dies it's a sacrifice and all of that type of thing. However, and I don't want to go into any great deep detail because I'm not comfortable with it. Okay, I'm not comfortable with it. I'm not comfortable talking about it. I don't like putting myself out there with these types of things, especially when it comes to celebrities. I do think that is something that may have some merit in this case. Okay, I haven't seen anybody say anything like that. I haven't seen any readings on it. I don't be looking for no readings, you know, on stuff, you know, celebrities and this, that, and other, you know. And at this particular time, I'm not going to do one. I'm just saying that from what has been shared with me by her, okay, that there's some merit there, okay, in terms of someone some kind of betrayal, okay, and a climbing up of the ladder, okay, by, you know, getting rid of. Okay, and that's all I'm gonna say on that at this particular time. All right. Now somebody may look at it at this video and decide they're gonna do a reading on it and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's your choice. You know, I ain't gonna be sitting up there. They's copying out for me. Because I was the great one. I knew it. You didn't. I'm not going to do that. Okay. But I just wanted to say that because she asked me to. And she also asked me to complete something that she was not able to complete. And which is so interesting because when she asked me to complete, that she was not able to complete, a week before her passing, I looked into this exact thing. Something that I want to do and that I'm going to do. Ain't no need nobody trying to come in my dreams and throw your motherfucking cards to figure out what it is. All of that shit. Anybody who tries to read on me, discover what's happening in my life through your cards and your pendulums and your rods and all of that shit. Guess what? All you're going to get is nothing but confusion. That shit is blocked. May you get nothing but confusion because it's none of your fucking business. I don't give a fuck how much you pay the high priestess and the man overseas, you know, the woman here and all of that type of shit. You will never know one fucking thing but confusion. Look into your own life and figure your own shit out. That's that. Okay. When it is complete, if I remember, and if I'm still on this motherfucker, because it's not something that's going to take me like overnight, it's going to take me a number of years to complete. Maybe like 5+. And I was like, wow, this is what you want me to complete? She said, yes. I said, I was looking into this a week before, you know, your passing. And, you know, she said, I said, you've been thinking about me, you thought about me all these years. She said, I have, which is interesting. I really liked her. Thought she was a beautiful person, you know. So, again, so when I completed, okay, if I'm still on this motherfucker, okay, you will know, okay. But it's not so much I want to complete it because it's something that I asked her, did you choose me to do this? She said, yes. It's not something that I'm saying that this is something I want to do because she asked me to. No, again, I looked into it a week before. So I thought it was so ironic. And then a few days later, she crossed my mind. And I thought, I wonder how she's doing, you know. And boom, there it is. Okay, there's so much to say and so much more to share. But that's just it. I just want to share that. That's just my, what do you call it? Just my talk or my share on, you know, knowing her and such a beautiful, beautiful human being that she was. I met some beautiful people in my life, period. Not just my time at Howard and not just people that were celebrities and whatnot. I've met some beautiful people I've gotten to know. I've been favored with the opportunity to meet awesome people. People who have done great work, people who were very well known in whatever their field of interest was long before YouTube was ever a fucking thought, okay? And there's not one person on this motherfucking app that I have met that I can say, I'm not saying there isn't one that doesn't exist. I said that I have met. That equates to any of those people before I got on here for the liars. All right, nevertheless, you all have favor. Peace.